Roddy's absolutely right. So, as the guys here know, I've got 3 sons and 6 brothers. I spoke to my 18-year-old son, he's just went to uni, so he's left school. I talked to him about this survey, and he says, what are the questions? Just as anecdotally, and I said, so one of the questions is, have you had anal sex? He says, and all the guys writing, aye, twice with your ma. That's literally how the boys will be answering it. That's so anecdotally, but that's from an actual young person who goes, aye. So all the boys will be like, aye, mostly with your ma, sort of thing, that. And but there's some serious notes that, because there will be kids under 16 who will be sexually active. Some of those with adults, some of them non-consensually. So again, it's no well thought out. They haven't thought about how they're going to deal with the information they get, how they're going to support the kids who might be disclosing information that comes with a whistleblowing responsibility for those agencies, such as schools. So if you're a 14-year-old who's saying, yeah, I'm in a sexual relationship with a 25-year-old man, what does that mean? Is that survey confidential or is it not? Does that mean you would have because as a whistleblower, your first responsibility would be to contact Police Scotland before you contacted anyone else. You'd be so if somebody goes, yeah, I have had sexual experience, I'm being sexually abused, what's the steps put in to support the re-traumatizing or the disclosing of that? I mean, it's just no well thought out. No. But there's another serious point behind that where Roddy's saying all the stuff we're not asking them about. We're not asking them about the impact on their mental health or their educational attainment. And the reason for that is because the answers to that require resources to be invested. The answers to that are going to need a plan. They require government to do something, not talk about something, do something. So we would prefer to have the distractions of asking kids about their sex lives. And I think another serious point behind that is it's going to lead to a conversation about lowering the age of consent. I know I'm going on loads here, I'm really sorry, but this is really important.
No, it is very important.
The stats that were released yesterday about the educational attainment is a disgrace. Everybody who lives in Scotland, who's involved with government on a national level, local level, or education must be in despair at the fact that our young people who've had so much to deal with in the last couple of years, whose education has been so severely impacted, and their mental health, their social development, their emotional development has been really so impacted over the last couple of years. And we've seen yesterday the attainment gap is widening more than it's ever been. It's wider than it's ever been. And who are affected? Shirley Ann told us yesterday, the poorest kids. Well, that's a surprise to absolutely no one. No. The same government that this week abandoned its pledge to give every primary school and a child in Scotland a free school meal, quietly abandoned this week. Not a headline. Not a headline. Where's all the outrages about carrots outside Pete Wishart's office? Where's the outrage about that yesterday? What's the outrage about 1 in 3 kids in Scotland who identify as hungry? Can we talk about that?
Yeah. You'd have thought they would have leaked that to the Daily Record as well.
Yeah. Question for all of you on a slightly different topic, but well, perhaps not. Team Nicola hashtag is trending. Well, someone is attempting to put it out there. People are posting religious-like iconographic images of Nicola Sturgeon. A lot of people are uncomfortable with this. This may seem a little harsh, but does the SNP have an independence leader or a camera-addicted, self-promoting personality cultist running the party?
Answer yes. It's simple as this. As someone who's made a career in sales and marketing, and that's really what politics is sales and marketing. This is just simply this. The powers to be within the SNP have looked and said, well, let's talk up our education policy. And they've gone, oh, no, it's rubbish. Well, let's talk up our transport. And oh, no, that's rubbish. So what have we got? The most popular thing about the SNP is not independence. It's Nicola Sturgeon. So they're promoting her because they've got nothing else to promote. Not independence, not the way they've handled anything, including COVID, because we've got some of the highest death rates in the world. Contrary to this, oh, Nicola's done a great job on COVID. No, she's not. She's just stood in front of the television cameras better than that buffoon down in Downing Street. But that's the only reason that they're putting out, standing on the Vogue magazine in a $3,000 coat, while kids, as Michelle's pointing out, are going hungry I thought the optics of that was disgusting. Kids in Glasgow are standing in soup kitchens and school nights, and she's standing in a $3,000 coat, posing for Vogue. Or this latest picture today, where she's staring into the sky like a saint. It's nauseating, but it's all they've got because they've got nothing else. That's the reality.
Yeah. Peter, is there a whiff of the Tory party about this?
Well, I've said before that all I can see with current SNP is old Tory. That's all I see. That they're saying they're treating people that as if they're in a different class for them. You're supposed to be a working class party that was formed to escape us from a union that was not fit for our prosperity. So I just don't agree with anything the SNP are doing at the moment, and it looks to me as though they're doing it on purpose to try and take us further away from ever getting independence.
I'll be really quick. So the first thing to say is I don't trust people that believe in heroes, right? Because I don't see this idea of deification or of any one individual. I don't believe in it. It makes me suspicious. If somebody said to me, Michelle, I listened to what you said yesterday and I agree with the 20 things out of 20 you said, I would say, well, I probably don't agree with at least 5 of them the day. So that would make me that you should always preserve your critical reasoning, and you should also apply your most robust criticism to your own arguments. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I think so whether it's Nicola Sturgeon or whether it's any one individual, right? I'm no built like that. But I don't think it's healthy for the individual, and I don't think it's healthy for the movement. And I think what Roddy says is true. That if you look at all these pictures, they're almost kind of things, the stained glass windows that you see in churches, and that tells me what this exactly is. Isn't it a political movement? It's a religion, and it's a religion in Nicola Sturgeon. But what's really dangerous for the whole independence movement about that is that when Nicola Sturgeon inevitably falls, and she will, doesn't matter how good or bad leader you are, that's the nature of things. Your time comes, it passes. You're a passenger. And when Nicola leaves, the shoddy house of cards and gender ID and juvenile politics that have been built on, when she goes, that all crashes. And what does that mean for the independence movement? What does that mean for nationalists like us? I mean, as quite aside from the kind of having a wee snigger at the absolute narcissism of those photos, because you're talking about the Tories, I'll tell you what, Tories would never do that. The very people that think they're knowing a cult, if Tories were posting pictures of Boris Johnson with practically a halo backlit, we would be being sick and be going, that's just, imagine the same people that do that with, I've known Nicola since she was 16 and I stand with teams. Just get off your knees, don't do that for anyone. The idea of being an independent country is that none of us will be required to bend the knee for anybody. We'll all be equals in a collective society. So I don't think it's, I think it's shallow, juvenile, but serious. I don't think it's helpful for the nationalists and the independence movement. It's not built on one person. It's built on all of us.
It shouldn't
exactly.
I agree with that, Michelle. I mean, I would just draw comparisons with our sister who's been given a movie role for spitting in somebody's face by the looks of it. I mean, is that how we start getting rewarded? Is it a case of we go out and break laws and get people in high places to make sure we don't get charged, and then we get rewarded with movie roles? I mean, is that? I don't see anything special with Nicola Sturgeon or anything that she tries to sell.
That's what's so difficult about all these assaults on people's everyday normal lives, because the whole idea about devolution, obviously we would have preferred independence, but the whole idea about devolution is that you gain trust. You show people that you can govern competently over the powers that you do have, the levers that you do have, and you build that confidence that given more powers, you would govern better than that remote government in Westminster that's doing so badly and treating us all so badly. The problem is why it's a bigger problem for us as an independence movement, as a cause, is that we've been shown to be governed just as badly by a so-called nationalist government. So it's not just holding the SNP to account because I'm in an opposite political party. I was in the SNP for a long time, and I was a nationalist before I was in the SNP, and I campaigned for it before I was in any political party. So I kind of, I want them to do well. I want them to do better. I want them to it's not criticism for the sake of it. It's to go, right, okay, show that case, because I know a lot of people, working people, as Roddy said, because it's not people largely on benefits. It's the working poor. It's the people who are working both jobs and still can't afford to pay their bills and feed their kids. And that's it's not a tiny minority of people, it's an ever-growing people. As Roddy said, school nights, school wains, standing at 10 o'clock, hoping to get a meal, and mums and dads work. I mean, that's crazy. If we can't convince people that we can sort out feeding our population, how can we convince anybody that we're fit to govern ourselves? So these things are important. All of these small things add up to a confidence and a belief that helps you, emboldens you to act boldly, to say we're going to do this because we believe we can, like Sinn Féin did, and like Scotland should.
Yeah, exactly. Brings us on to the next point, actually. A question for everyone here. George Caravan wrote this week, with the PM's credibility in shreds, is now the day and the hour for Nicola Sturgeon and the independence movement to rally for the last battle to gain Scotland's self-determination? Or will this historic moment evaporate in disappointment? Will the SNP receive its 7th pro-Indy majority since 2011, Roddy? Or is it time to mobilise alternative pro-Indy candidates who will stand on the SSRG platform?
Well, you're asking someone who's, after 50 years of supporting the SNP, left and is now in the Alba Party. Should we give them another mandate? No, we shouldn't, because they'll ruin it the way they have the last 6. And I don't think that the time is right, but the time was right in 2016. The time was right in 2017. The time was right in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. And, we can't because of COVID and Omicron and all this. Every other country in the world, we could hold council elections, we can hold general elections, but apparently COVID only strikes if you're going for independence. So no, we don't. And I think we should be aiming, going back to one of your first questions, we should be aiming for 1918. In 2024, when the Tories go to the country, the Alba Party and the independence movement should be seeing about replacing the SNP with people who actually want independence. Yeah. That's what we should be working towards, and we should be working towards it from today onwards, is to get Scotland independent by 2024, because no referendum's coming in 2023. And Stu Campbell's famous bet with everyone, his money's safe. Any bets you don't want to give to Stu Campbell, I'll take them, because it's not going to happen. Without having a plug at my own show, when I interviewed Angus this weekend, he told us that Mike Russell himself told him 3 times there's not going to be a referendum in 2023. So no more mandates for them, no more giving them time. They've had enough rope, they've hung themselves, they need to go, they need to be replaced, says the man who today was shouting for unity, but it's just a fact.
Peter, is it the time to put forward alternative candidates now for Westminster election? That could come sooner than we think, because if there is a schism at Westminster, Boris, among the others, there could be infighting, and there could come an early election, even though they have this majority. Should we be putting...
I think the longer there is no general election, the better it stands the new pro-independence parties in good stead, in my opinion. I won't vote for SNP. I voted for SNP because I was asked to give them my vote. I wasn't voting for SNP other than the absence of another independence party to vote for in 2021. But this time round, there's options there. As Roddy and Michelle are aware, we've got the Alba Party, and also we've got the ISP that are still there and trying to grow as well. So I think that if people that are fed up being marched up the hill to get marched back down again, actually come to a reality and go, listen, are we going to be stupid enough to go all the way back up here again just to be told no and feel like this again for another 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the case may be? No, I think people are waking up to it.
Yeah. Michelle, is it time to go back to the principle of a majority, simple majority of MPs, Scottish MPs? They are the heirs of the 1707 commissioners, and in reality, they could, with a majority, revoke the union.
Absolutely. It was the position in the past, as we know. And I'm kind of with Roddy in saying that if we're not treating a majority of pro-independence MPs being elected as a mandate to withdraw from the union, then what are we mandating those MPs for? What else do they deliver from that parliament? Absolutely, nothing. No, all the time. So we could be there another 30 years. We'll get nothing. So yes, absolutely. I'm struggling to see the point of our MPs being without being down there just to say a majority of us says that we're just coming down to say bye, we're off. So you've got to think short money, people's wages. That's what they think their mandate is. That's what they think they're there for. To go down and pontificate on the back of us. I'm sure actually a lot of those current incumbent MPs, they would absolutely shit themselves if they thought there was going to be an independence referendum in 2023, because a lot of them would be out of a job. And then a lot of them would be saying cheerio at their comfy pension. And a lot of those people would find it almost impossible to be employed in the real world. Because actually, apart from kind of, standing up and kind of shouting bluster that the opposition doesn't even stay to listen for, people like Pete, I don't think there would be a big rush of people going, we want to employ his expertise. Same for a lot of people in Holyrood, to be fair. You've got a justice minister who's a failed drama student. You've got what in the real world, when would that happen? That just would not happen. So I don't see the point of them. And actually, having worked closely with better get my hierarchy right. Wouldn't want to put myself on the same platform. But having worked for some MPs, it doesn't mean, even in my experience, even the ones that go down there with the best intentions, they're there for about 6 months before the status, the sense of their own grandness gets to them, and the wages, and they're very much often out of Scotland and away from that connection, that visceral connection with the people in their communities and their daily reality. So, no, I think we should do the same as Sinn Féin, but then that would leave the SNP short money. I'm sure they're not considering that when they're thinking about that.
See, Michelle, I don't think you're considering, where would the Westminster MPs go on holiday? I mean, they would have to come back to Scotland. You know what I mean?
And they would have to speak to their constituents. They'd have to open their offices. Could you imagine?
Unblock people on Twitter. Roddy, can we move on to your programme on Sunday? Now, you didn't have Pete Wishart. He declined, sadly. But you had Angus on. And to be honest, listening to that, I wasn't actually very encouraged afterwards. I actually felt quite down after listening to him. Because even though he is our favourite, what you could say, SNP distant, along with Joanna, he seems to have accepted the fact that he cannot do anything. He accepts being booed. And I'm wondering if he's not become the acceptable face of SNP procrastination. Harsh, perhaps?
Well, you put me in an awkward position here, Peter. But
well, I've said it.
Well, the fact is that I thought towards the end of the programme he had got to the position, because he kept saying, 26, in the Holyrood Parliament. And as I pointed out, well, why not? Why not? I mean, we started off beginning to the Westminster. It's Westminster we want to leave. Why can't we use the Westminster election as a way of, getting out of the union? And he didn't seem so keen on that, I must admit, in the first instance, because maybe no, that means I would lose my job. But towards the end, he seemed to come to agree with it. I think we should, every general election, and I believe in abstentionism. Now, I'm making my position clear, nothing to do with the Alba Party here. My position is I believe in abstentionism, and I will be trying to push that, actually. That's just as another thing when it comes to the party. But at the moment, it's not the party's final position. It's mine. I don't think there's any point, like Michelle says, there's no point in them being there, apart from getting money for the party. Yeah. We achieved nothing. I seriously, if someone could come to me and say, well, actually, we do this, and that gets us there. But there's nothing. The SNP since 1934, our first MP in 1945, albeit for a couple of months, Dr. Robert McIntyre, have achieved nothing except one amendment on fox hunting for foxes, or should I say for fox's sake. It's really, that's the total achievement. So why are we there?
Yeah. Well, Philippa Whitford almost confirmed this today. There has been some debate about her moving sideways, and she says, well, she's not been moved off. She more or less accepted this.
Replaced by a banker.
Yeah, I mean, she said he's been in health for the past few years, and she's not particularly upset herself about it. But the key thing about what she said was the fact that, well, they don't, as you all mentioned, they don't listen. So her own position there is basically a waste of time.
Correct.
If they don't listen to her on health, why are they going to listen to her on Europe? What's changed?
Someone who will remain nameless. I was going to say an MP who's been an MP, or it is an MP for the SNP, I'm not going to divulge, said to me, he said, half of them down there have admitted openly they could never make this money, as Michelle alludes to. And let's remember, one of our MPs now was serving fish and chips, and now getting 82 grand a year and telling the rest of us we don't know what it's all about.
I mean, nothing matter with selling fish and chips. I've worked in the chippy. I've fish and chips, but it's you're quite right. It's what you allude to. It's that utter hypocrisy of posing as and that was a pose. Make no doubt about it. That particular MP you're talking about didn't come from a work. It comes a very leafy area, nice area, and I'm not saying that means that you should be disregarded because you come from one area or another, and that means if you come from a nice area as much as you come from a working class area. But whilst you're standing kind of promoting yourself as, all them are doing there as weather vanes and I'm going to stay the course and kind of, then, and you're there a year, you're giving up talking about any policies that affect working class people, giving up talking about WASPI, especially when it's put back to you that actually the Scottish Government again powers under the Scotland Act where they could mitigate payments to Scottish WASPI women. Then all of a sudden we're not talking about WASPI women because apparently now it's the Scottish Government's responsibility. Now we're talking about you could pee next to me. It's ridiculous. There's any job you're in, and public office is no different for anywhere else. You're subject to supervisions, you're subject to checks and balances, you're subject to how are you doing in your job? What have you delivered? What impacts, what outcomes have you delivered? And that's different when you're opposition, as the SNP used to be, shouting for give us the levers and we'll make it better. But now we're in a position where you're like, we've had the levers, and where are we? We're no better. In fact, somewhere we're significantly worse, and we're still attached to the sinking ship that is Westminster. So it's quite right for these people to be held to account. But it's the same people who are promoting themselves as heroes of the working class are then sitting with MI5 and all the instruments of the state that we knew were the very people we had to fight are the people they're sitting having tea with. It's ridiculous. Get them home. Get them speaking to their constituents who pay their comfy wages. Make sure they've got to face them in the shops every 2 days instead of senior policemen who are bowing and scraping to these people who, as I say, would struggle to get employment in the real world.
Mentioning MI5, Peter, that brings us to a topic that came up on your show recently. You had Campbell Martin on, and he alluded to long-term British spies within the SNP apparatus.
He did.
A question for everybody: what can we do? We have no counter-espionage services in Scotland. We have no security services of our own. Are we just at the mercy of the British state? What can we do?
I've got an idea. Why don't we go for independence? That would take care of it. No, you're right. I had Campbell as well, and he alluded to it. And I don't know what he said to you off camera. I know what he said to me. So exactly.
Off camera, probably.
And I thought, you're yes. So that's the only solution. We've got to get out. And the thing to understand, the British state are masters at dirty tricks. And that's why people saying things like, you can't game the election system against the unionists. It wouldn't be fair. People who said it was fair, making sure the unionists get seats with the SNP 1-2 in Holyrood. The British are the dirtiest, filthiest fighters going. And to you wise up with that. And of course they are. They'll be in Alba as well. Without a doubt, we will have British Secret Service people within the Alba Party. They'll be in the ISP. They'll be everywhere. They'll be in the pro-independence media. They are everywhere. Yeah. And all we can do is get out of the British state, and become independent. There is no other alternative,
No.
in my humble opinion, anyway.
Just to follow on from what you're saying there, Roddy, like Campbell was very open off camera and gave us like a few wee threads to kind of exhaust, is the best way that I can put it, and they check out. So it's like I don't doubt what Campbell Martin says in any way, shape or form on camera, and I definitely don't doubt knowing the conversation off camera.
Yeah. Well, there is a possibility to join certain dots if you know enough about the history of the past 2 decades.
It's called Jigsaw. It's called Jigsaw.
The SNP. Oh.
Easy.
Well, we've actually run over time by 50%, but that doesn't matter at all. This was really very, very interesting. Going to round off now, but I'd like to know from all of you what may be coming up on Prism shows, Alba Party events. Okay, Roddy, what have you got in store for us on Prism?
Well, yeah, we've actually got a busy year-end. This week I've got the wonderful Rona Hotchkiss, the ex-governor of Cork and Vale, who's coming on. We will be talking about the sex survey and all other women's issues, because I like to give the ladies as much airtime as everything else, because this is one of the most important things going on in Scotland just now. And I will be ably assisted, instead of having my Coatbridge Cavalier and Paisley Mohawk, I will be with the lovely Denise Finlay and the lovely Yvonne Ridley will be helping me on that one. I have, on the 29th, attention, I have the leader of the Alba Party coming to give us a royal visit. Nice. So I'm looking forward to that. And we're having a year-end a review as well, where I'll have numerous guests on and possibly a live show in between Christmas and New Year to round off the year. And in the new year, we were approached to do an Alba fundraiser by taking the Prism show on tour. So as I said, well, we can't do just one. So we've been in touch. Several LACUs have been in touch, and one Yes Hub. So the Prism show is going on tour of Scotland in February.
Okay. What are the previous SNP members of the Alba Party up to in the near to short-term future?
Well, we've had quite a busy month. This month we had our fundraiser in Glasgow. We had our National Council. We had the National Assembly. Last night we had our, not last night, the night before, we had our latest Women's Forum, which are really, really popular part of our kind of reoccurring agenda. So they're always very, very well attended. We were talking about setting up working groups for women to inform what will be the Alba Party's Women's Manifesto, as it were, our Alba women's response to the current reforms of legislation. So there'll probably not be that much in terms of like social or public events, but this part of the year is where everybody goes, and does all the work, all the reading and all the writing, and kind of refining the detail of the stuff that's came out of both our conference earlier this year and our National Council and National Assembly. So yes, working up until a few days before Christmas, and then it all kicks off in January, and I'm sure all the start of prepping up for our spring conference and stuff will all start then, and all the committees. So lots of political stuff, but I think over the next few weeks it's about we're quite keen on developing those networks. For me, it's like talking to unions, talking to the people that we'd been speaking to when I was in the SNP. Because the party that I'm in, Alba, are faced with at the moment, we've tried to build a platform and a profile, but also I'm happy to work away, try to build some credibility in terms of being a credible political organisation that can have real political influence. So that's where we're going in the new year. Onwards and upwards, hopefully.
Okay. And finally, just remind us all, repeat one more time where we can find you on social media, the internet. Roddy, you are on Twitter as?
At ScottPole1314. And
otherwise known as Barhead Boy.
Barhead Boy. And of course, my website is www.barheadboy.com, where you can get that. You can get my blogs and my podcasts. Or vlogcasts, or whatever the hell we call them these days. I don't know.
Videocasts. Peter, one more time from you.
On
Twitter, you are?
I'm Tweet Street Occupied Scotland, Tweet Street Oc 1. in Cinnamon Bridges with Barclay Peter 7.
Okay.
On YouTube at Tweet Street Scotland Occupied. I'm not as professional as Roddy and have a website or anything like that. I'm grassroots amateur, so that's the only way you can contact me.
Okay, excellent. And Michelle, where can we find you on Twitter or social media?
I'm not much of a social media one these days, but at Michelle Ferns 11 is my Twitter page if you wanted to catch me there.
Well, listen, thanks very much, everyone, for taking part, and I hope you all have a lovely Christmas season in December.
Yeah, have a nice Christmas and New Year.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay,
bye
Thank
now.
you. Merry Christmas.
Snow is falling.